The fourth issue, and again, this is one of the things that I pointed out originally as something that I liked. Uh, the fourth issue I had is the post-release content. Now, again, I said I'm very happy that they have pretty much supported the game. Now, supported is a loose term, but they've supported the game since launch. I mean, every month they have added stuff, and for the most part, in theory, these things have been cool. They're been cool. Like, the incursions were cool. They were supposed to be like raids and whatnot, but they never really got to that level. They've never been that fun. They added the HVTs. They added higher difficulty enemies, higher difficulty sectors of the dark zone, weapons, gear, stuff like that. They've eventually added the underground. Again, all this stuff. It's nice to see that Ubisoft and Massive went through the effort of building up all this extra content after release to keep the game going. Because honestly, if it wasn't for that, the game would have died within the first month. I mean, it just there wasn't enough there to really sustain it for that long. So it was nice. But the problem ends up being that most of the post release content is kind of pointless. Again, kind of like going back to the map issue. It's just like, what's the point of doing all this stuff? For example, the first update came out, or the first major update, 1.1, came out with the first incursion Falcon Lost. And the first incursion Falcon Lost basically put you in a room with an armored personnel carrier, an APC, just shooting grenades at you as wave after wave of enemies attacked. And you had to kill all these enemies. And one of them eventually, like three of them, four of them drop explosives. You plant it on the APC 4 times, you win. And that was it. And the thing was, first off, it was a pain in the ass to do, and minimum it takes 25 to 30 minutes to do, and it's not fun. I mean, I've never played Falcon Lost and had fun with it. It's been more of you finish and you're just like, oh, thank God it's over. Never, oh, that was cool. Never had that experience. The issue though is it was just boring, right? Like, it was just, you got put inside one room. You spent 30 minutes basically doing the same thing over and over again until it was over, and then you probably didn't even get anything worthwhile from the drops at the end. Boring, annoying. I hated it. So the second incursion comes along, and it's called Clear Sky, right? And Massive, leading up to this, keeps telling us, oh, it's going to be better, right? It's going to be more linear. It's going to be like, one of the missions. You're going to be walking through it. It's not going to be one room. And you go and you play it, and it starts out that way, right? You go in and you walk down a block, and there's a helicopter. It crashes into a building, and it's got this really cool look and feel. And you're like, okay, this is so much better than Falcon Lost, right? And then you get to the first main section of the incursion, and it's essentially the Falcon Lost all over again, right? You have to kill waves of enemies until they drop explosives. You plant the explosives twice to get onto the next area. That's nothing new. That's the same boring shit. And so you get to the second area. And guess what the second area is? It's the same goddamn thing again. You get in there, you've got a downed helicopter or plane or whatever that thing was, shooting grenades at you while you're killing wave after wave after wave of enemies. And then you're not planting explosives, you're plugging in fuse boxes and hitting a computer to end the mission. Eventually, you do kill a boss and you get drops again. And usually, those drops again, pointless, not necessary. But it's the same thing. You get what I'm saying? And finally, they come out with the last one, or at least, well, I mean, they're probably going to have more, but the most recent one, Dragon's Nest. Now, Dragon's Nest, again, before it came out, everybody was saying, or Massive was saying, it's going to be great, right? It's going to be more linear. It's going to be a better experience. It's going to be more fun. And you go and you play it, and that's how it starts out. It's it's got better atmosphere than the first two incursions, and it's like a real mission. You're walking through it, and you're killing enemies, and you get to the first little mini boss area, and it's 4 bosses named after the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and it's really cool. And I was like, you know what? The whole time I'm thinking, this is great. This is great. This is so much better than the first 2 incursions. And then you get to the end of the incursion, and what is it again? Oh, you're in a room with a giant armored vehicle while waves and waves and waves of enemy come after you, and you have to go do some bullshit quick time events to get it done, to finish it. It's literally the end of that mission is the exact same as the end of Clear Sky, which is the exact same as all of Falcon Lost. It's like they can't. Why have all this extra content if it all ends up playing exactly the same? It makes no sense. The other big thing that they added, or one of the other big things that they always add is uh, harder and harder enemies to kill. Now, again, like I said before, with the grind not being worth it, it's not fun, right? Because you never really feel like you're getting any stronger, and when you do finally feel like you're getting stronger, the next update comes out and basically takes a big steaming shit all over everything you just accomplished, and it's just it's not fun. It's an annoyance, right? And the last thing was the biggest update they added, well, seemingly the biggest update, was the Underground. And at first, I was really excited about the Underground because I thought of the Underground being kind of like Diablo 3's Rifts and Greater Rift system. Now, one of the things that I loved the most about Diablo 3 after putting so much time into it was the Rifts and Grifts. Now, again, this is something I played on Xbox One, so I think we got it much later than the guys on the PC. So by the time it got to me, it was like a fresh new idea. I loved it. It was a nice way of seeing how much better you got over time. Like, dude, I just beat level 50. Let's go do 51. I just beat 51. Let's go do 52. Like it was a great experience. Underground is nothing like that. It's basically just more of pointless, meaningless grind where you get only drops at the very end. Almost all the time they suck. The amount of experience you get is pointless. It's just why? Why? The last thing I want to add into that, I know this section is a little bit long, but the last thing with the post release content I have an issue with is the fact that it's adding on to what I've just said. It's all more of the same. Now, if you've been playing the division since day one, you know that there was like types of currency if we're considering crafting materials separate pieces of currency. There's like 8 types of currency in the game from day one, right? You had the regular credits, you had dark zone credits, then you had all the crafting materials. Like I said, you had division tech, tools, fabric, weapon parts. Electronics. I think I'm missing one more, but you get the idea, right? And then once you maxed out your character, you got Phoenix credits, right? And Phoenix credits were like the Uber currency. And then it seems like with every new update, they have added a new type of currency, a new stupid thing you have to grind for. So when they added the HVTs, you couldn't just use like what you already had to buy an HVT contract. You had to go and find HVT intel. When the Underground came out, you had to go and earn Underground intel, right? And then it's to the point. And then each new thing that they add, so you had the grind to get your normal character up to level 30. Then you got to go into DZ and you got to try and max out, which it's kind of pointless. Once you get to 75, that's pretty much good enough. But you got to grind out your character in the Dark Zone. I think the max was at a 99 or 100. I'm not too sure. I never got close to it. I think I stopped when I was at like 76. And then the Underground comes out, and guess what? You got a whole new level. You got your Underground level, and I think that one maxes out at 40. And again, it's not it's like a fake way of encouraging grind. It's a very disingenuous way of extending the life of the game, because instead of saying, okay, we're going to make you better at the game and give you maybe more missions that are add to the experience of the game, we're just going to create new stupid levels or currency or bullshit that you have to grind for that really in the end don't really add to the game. The Underground, I'm sorry, is as much of a nice idea it was in theory, to me didn't add much to the game. I got tired of it in 3 days, and I know a lot of other people did too. It was a nice in theory, terrible in practice. Yeah, you know what? Let's move on to the next, or I'm gonna just keep talking about that. The last thing, and this one is maybe something I personally have an issue that other people will not think twice about, and it's the fact that the division, and this is actually something that I thought about when the beta came out. I feel like the division was doomed to fail for one pretty basic reason. Now, I said that the division has kind of like similar to Diablo 3 and Borderlands 2, Path of Exile, Torchlight, in the sense that it's an RPG, right? It's a grinding, loot based RPG. The difference is all those other games, and pretty much every RPG of that type, has a class system, and the division has no classes system. And you would think that kind of adds something to the game, right? It shouldn't subtract, it should add, because in theory, anybody can be anything at any time, which kind of makes it more fun, right? Like, you're not locked into being a medic. You can be a damage dealer. You can be a tank. You can be, an engineer, depending on the type of game you're playing, right? You can be anything. It's kind of like Battlefield 4, where, you die, you can change your class, and you can be anything. You're not locked into one thing for an entire 30-minute game, which would be annoying as hell. The problem, though, is once everybody gets to be anything, most of the game ends up being meaningless. Most of the stuff that you get. And let me explain that. If everything is available to everybody, there's no balance to the game, right? Instead of, okay, well, this build is all about, or this class is all about spells, right? So I can build my guy up to be a fire guy, right? And then somebody else, he's like, well, I'm I'm more of a tank. I'm going to be more resistant to fire to go against these guys who deal fire damage. There's none of that, right? Instead, everybody basically ends up with essentially what's the best meta build throughout the entire game. That's why we have so many people who have almost literally the exact same build across the entire spectrum of all the things that you could be. From day one, there's been almost the exact same builds for everybody. We had the 3-2-1 build. We've got the Tanktician build, the Sticky Bomb build, which I believe is just an extension of the Tanktician build. Is all these things that are basically they've ruined the game because there's no balance, there's no variety, there's no uniqueness to each character. Everybody can be anything, but everybody ends up being one thing. And that has killed, I know a lot of people believe that's killed the PvP aspect of the game. I don't think anybody's really broke it down into that one issue. And I think that's what the issue is. I think if they went with a more traditional class-based system and they forced people into playing more specific builds that were, specifically medic or specifically a damage dealer, specifically a tank, specifically a sniper, I feel like that would have actually not only just added to the game, but I feel like it would have completely fixed a lot of the issues with a PvP and possibly even with some of the stuff with the PvE. Would have made teams more fun to be a part of, and it would have probably made the grind a lot easier because instead of having every piece of gear to fit every possible build, you would be picking up gear that's very much more specific to your class, right? So instead of you're picking up a backpack and there's like 20 different things it could have, if you're a medic, it's only going to maybe have 4 or 5 different options, not 20. And then it would just made the grind would have been better. The PvP probably would have been better. The overall experience of the game probably would have been a lot better than it was or has been to today. So that's pretty much my main issues with the game. The way I see it, I've kind of given up on the Division in the sense that I don't think there's any way they can completely fix the game. They could make it better. They could add things that make it more fun, but I don't think there's any way to fix the problems with the game. I think the game is, in essence, broken, and I don't think that will ever change. The way I see it at this point, the Division is really more of a practice for the next one. Because there's going to be a sequel. Ubisoft made a lot of money off of this one. They have to make a second one. And to be honest, I'm probably going to get suckered in and buy the second one too. I'm just hoping that they learn all their mistakes from this one, and going forward, they fix them and they make a much better game. Thanks for listening. I'm Man in the Silver Mountain, and hope to see you next time.